part of life, it is everywhere, in all its forms, styles and variations. Music is a key factor in expressing who we are and how we would like to be perceived by our peers and who in society we ally ourselves with. The content of much of the music which is played openly on the airwaves could be read as being overtly sexual or glorifying violence. The question is, does the music we listen to have an effect on us?
Hi, welcome to the Yes Show. I'm really glad you've joined us today. We've got a packed show for you. Today's theme is music and its effect on society. Question for you. Do you think music influences us? Let's find out.
Music can bring people together. You'll find around a city that people dress to do with their particular music, they act a certain way to do with their music, whether they're into grime or indie or classical or anything. There's groups of people who come together because of that music that they're into. So I think it can be positive, but at the same time when there's people into that kind of music, it can be negative. If a lot of the time if people are into grime, you'll find that the kids have got such negative connotations from all the people around them that they'll be angry and frustrated because they feel that no one's really listening to what they have to say. So I think things like that can be quite negative, and obviously the lyrics that are said, I mean, I know 10, 11-year-old kids who are swearing more than most adults do because they listen to certain MCs. People just need to be wise to it. I think parents probably need to police it a little bit better. Parents can choose what their kids listen to a certain degree when they're in the house at very least. But I think people could just do with being truthful, because a lot of the kids I talk to, they just say, oh, I'm copying what I hear. Their lyrics mimic what they hear adults saying, but the adults are talking like kids, saying, I'll murk you or do this, that and the other, when that's not anything they do. This is like little kids who are claiming that they're going around with guns and whatnot, and they're not. So I think probably the MCs do need to just kind of point out sometimes that this is falsification, just like you said about 50 Cent earlier on. It's like, 50 knows exactly what he's doing. He's not stupid, he's an intelligent guy. He knows that he caters to a particular market because he looks like a gangster, and it's like there's a lot of people who are into that and want to follow what he does. They want to look how he looks and act how he acts. There's the same thing just in with UK scene as well. So I think like people just need to be wise to the fact that music is a performance. Those people go home and have their lives just as anyone else does. It's just an act a lot of the time, and people don't get that. If that's what they've been through, and that's honestly what they've been through, fair dues, that's what music's about. But when it comes to music being false and people saying things that they're not actually doing, I think that's when it needs to be watched.
Don't forget, you can join us on Facebook and give your opinion. Now let's join Rosine, who's with Soldier for Christ, a Christian reggae artist.
Hey, what you gonna do if they stage a fake?
Hi Steve, welcome to the Yes Show.
Hi Rosine, it's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Steve, I'm aware you're born into a Christian and music talented family.
That's right, absolutely.
When exactly did you become interested in music?
I think I became interested in music probably around about the age of like 2 or 3. Yeah, that early.
Wow. And you've got lots of people out there who are like, I love music, who've got this passion for music, but they're probably doing other things with their lives. So what was it other than the passion that made you convinced that music was your thing?
I think, to be honest with you, being brought up in a Christian family, a Christian musical family, I was constantly surrounded by musical instruments, and I used to see my family, my granddad, my uncle, my dad playing instruments, and I just used to want to just grab the musical instrument and give it a bash, and that's how I kind of it just started off at a young age, I guess.
And you started off with secular music, right?
Yeah, I guess about 2 or 3 I was doing secular music.
How exactly do you?
Nah, not 2 years, 2 or 3 years old. I was just getting to grips with how to play instruments, I guess.
And you're a DJ and...
Yeah, I mean later on in my musical career, I kind of got involved in the secular side of things. I became a club DJ, a club producer, that kind of stuff.
But how did your music, how did you get into the music?
How did I get into the music industry? I think it started off with as I was progressing as a youngster. as a musician, I used to go and play in the church. So I used to go and play the piano in the church, and I was invited to join a band when I was around about 12 years old. So I started playing in a band, and that was a great experience for me. And that was a Christian band, so we used to lead the worship in the church. And around about 15 years old, it was coming to that time where I had to do my GCSEs, and my mum and dad said, no, you can't go and play in the band no more. And I was really upset. I was really angry at them, and they were stopping me from going and playing in the church. And I was saying, okay, if that's how you want to be, then I'm going to be a certain way. And I started going out there and I started to rebel. And that was around about 14, 15 years old, just when I was about to do my GCSEs. And then from there, I kind of got mixed up in the wrong society, and for me, music was out the window. I forgot about music, and I started to just be a little bit of a bad boy, a real little bit of a bad boy. Not very bad, but just slightly bad. And I started going out clubbing at 16, and that's how I got into music, through clubbing.
Oh, through clubbing?
Yeah, through clubbing, yeah.
So probably, I'm guessing your first music job was a DJ at the club or something?
Yeah, something like that, yeah. Just the first kind of musical thing was just going back in and going and DJing in a club. And the thing is, as a musician, I put my keyboard down and put my guitar down at around about 14, 15. And I began to pick up a record, and I started playing the record on the deck.
Yeah.
And then I got this urge to become a DJ. I used to see other DJs around me, and yeah, I guess that was the first kind of thing that led me back down that path again.
Well, while you were into secular music and stuff, you were making it big. I mean, if you had continued, probably, who knows. So why did you get back into Christian music?
Well, what happened was, I was having quite a lot of success as a secular DJ, and during that time I started producing music as well. So my music began to get quite a lot of attention, and some of it got released globally, even got released. I was doing DJ mixes as well for certain particular radio shows, big radio shows like Kiss 100, Radio 1, people like that. And I guess for me at that time it was a real high, and it was a real high point in my life at that time when I was hearing my tracks being played live on the radio, being playlisted in different shows. And at that time I had absolutely no intentions of becoming a Christian artist. It was the last thing on my agenda, because I was having so much of a high. And I remember at that time my mum was looking at me and she was saying to me, Steve, you know what, you've got good talent, why don't you use it for God? And I said, Mum, it's not going to happen. I'm a DJ, I'm a producer, I'm doing my thing. Yeah, God's watching my back anyway. It's music, Mum, it's only music. What's the problem with it? But the problem with it was the lifestyle that comes with it.
Yeah.
And also, I began to worship music. It became an idol to me. I used to live it, I used to speak it, I used to sleep it, I used to think about it first thing in the morning. Music, that was what I used to think about. Music, that's what I was born for. That's what I used to tell myself. But it was a lie from the devil.
Why did you leave such success to go back to Christian music?
Because I would go out and I would perform as a DJ, or sometimes even perform as an artist, because at that time I was producing my own music. I was also writing my own songs and collaborating with other artists. And say for instance, I might have gone and done a live PA at an event in the evening, in the night time, and I would have felt this real buzz and this real rush as an artist, because what a lot of artists get a rush off is all the hype and all the attention, and everyone's like shouting your name, and you know, you're on stage, you're the focus of, you know, everyone's attention's on you, and at that point you'd feel this real adrenaline rush going through. And then when you perform, whether I was DJing or whether I was just performing, I feel that adrenaline rush, and it was that feel-good factor that kept drawing me back to it, and that feeling of being wanted. But then I'd go home and I'd go to sleep, and I'd wake up the next morning and I'd feel a real emptiness inside of me. And I used to feel that emptiness, and it used to make me feel depressed. And I'd always question God. I said, what's going on? What's my life? I'm feeling really, really depressed. Like, you know, God, what is it? is this? There must be more to life than feeling like this. And I guess I used to do my music, and I used to also work a job as well. So I used to teach music in a school, and at that time I would go to work, but I would think about the weekend, because I know that most of my performances were on the weekend because they would take up quite a lot of time. And I began to live my life for the weekend, but then the weekend would go and I feel empty. And I just feel this real emptiness, and I was trying to fill it with lots of different things.
And what kind of music do you do?
At the time I used to, when I was kind of involved in the secular, was kind of a different kind of stuff. I was doing kind of similar kind of genres like house, reggae, hip hop, that kind of genres that I was kind of crossing into at the time.
And like, what inspires the Christian songs you do right now? Do you get inspired by your personal events, or do you read stuff from the Bible, or what inspires the songs you do right now?
I think a bit of both. Sometimes I get inspired by what I'm reading in the Bible. Sometimes something might just jump out at me, and I might get a certain feeling. I want to write about that. Or sometimes it might be something that I've experienced as a person in this world. I might write about it and relate it back to what God's saying to me at that time, in how He's kind of taken me through that situation. I might be writing about my own personal life journey. So and sometimes when I write about it, I think that might be able to impact somebody else, or might be able to help somebody with that who might be going through something similar.
And which of the songs appeals to you the most?
I guess they all appeal to me the most.
Do you have
because
any? Is there anyone you know?
Just trying to think. I mean, Count Your Blessings is a good one. That one, when I kind of wrote that particular one, I was actually going through the transition phase of changing over from a secular musician to a Christian musician, and I didn't actually know where all these Christian lyrics, all these lyrics about God were coming out of. I couldn't understand where were they coming from. But at that time, that was a transition point where I was kind of going through that changeover, and I realised that God was beginning to speak to me. He was speaking to me, and I was in the studio one day, and I came out with Count Your Blessings, and it just blew me away. So I guess that's one of my favourites. I'm currently writing a song about Egypt, and how about Egypt and being enslaved and God delivering you from Egypt, and kind of looking at how the Bible talks about the time when the Israelites were taken captive by Pharaoh, and how Moses came and he delivered them out of slavery. And in the same way, I'm relating it to today's society, of how sometimes we can be entrapped and taken enslaved by Satan, and it's kind of like being in Egypt. So I'm kind of like writing about that, and also kind of relating it when the Israelites kind of came out of Egypt and God was leading them to the promised land. Some of them wanted to turn back and go back into Egypt. So sometimes our lives can be like that. God might be taking us out of like a certain lifestyle or certain situation, and sometimes we might feel like a call to go back there, but when we know that God's promised has many promises for us, so we should kind of look at those. So I'm kind of writing a song just to inspire people that it's really important to focus on God and to just keep focused on the promised land.
That's so powerful, really. I kind of like it. Sounds really, inspiring. When you told me Egypt, I was like, But that sounds really, I'm really moved. I'm waiting. And what kind of music do you listen to?
I listen to different genres of music. I like reggae music, obviously. That has been a big influence in my life from a very young age. Reggae and roots. I like my house music too. I listen to quite a lot of worship music as well. And I like my classical music too.
So what you're saying is you're not solely gospel. You're a blend of gospel, secular.
No, definitely not. I'm gospel all the way through.